Kai Havertz, the young superstar who has been blowing up the Bundesliga this season for Bayer Leverkusen, is being strongly linked with a move to Chelsea. Now, Chelsea seem like the only club in England who are willing to actually spend money on a footballer. We get into where we think the transfer is so far, what Havertz brings to Chelsea, why Chelsea want him, and compare him to whose position at Chelsea is most likely under siege.
And also stay tuned for later where we grade the transfer from A to F if the transfer were to go through. We factor in the price and we factor in the fit into the team and overall how good it is for Chelsea. And also we're happy to introduce the bullshitter meter where we grade it 1 to 10, 1 being if it was written by the Sun and 10 if it was officially announced by the club itself. And thanks to all of our subscribers, you guys are the best. Keep suggesting for us to do things because at the end of the day, we are here for you. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and let's get into it. So what do we know about the transfer so far? Chelsea seem to be the only club willing to pay the sort of fee acceptable for Bayer Leverkusen, taking advantage of tight purses in and around world football at the moment. The fee reportedly is 80 million euros after add-ons and bonuses.
There's a few things I just want to add to that. It's been reported that Bayer Leverkusen have categorically rejected any approach which will see Havertz leave before the Champions League is concluded. And quite interestingly, a director today for Bayer Leverkusen come out and said they haven't actually received any offers yet. But if I was a Chelsea fan, I wouldn't worry about it that much. There's a lot of political BS in football, so that could be them just trying to get the upper hand in some weird way.
It has been reported by David Ornstein, aka The Ornacle, that personal terms have been agreed between the player and the club. So it looks like he is keen to come and play for Chelsea and has already had a conversation with Frank Lampard over his future.
Do people actually say that?
Yeah, of course they do, all over Twitter. I love him.
Fine, whatever. Real Madrid, by the way, which is Havertz's dream club, that's the club he'd want to play for. They were sniffing around. But the rumour is that they haven't got the money to pay for him. They're too busy picking up Eden Hazard's tabs at KFC.
which they thought would directly lead to goals, but it is obviously not happening. Let's get into the analysis now. Chelsea's first goal is to compete with Liverpool and Man City, and they are third in the goal scoring charts with 69 goals, which is very nice. Hey. But Frank Lampard's issue is that he is 16 goals behind Liverpool and 33 behind Man City. So quite a big gap. And Chelsea are the only side in the top 8 to not have a player with more than 20 plus goal contributions. And this is what he's looking to achieve with Kai Havertz.
Yeah, just for anyone not sure, goal contributions are goals plus assists. Easy fucking peasy. So let's look at a little bit as to why Chelsea want him and how he's going to fit in. I think the first place to start is to have a look at that Chelsea side and see which position he's most likely to take. Now, statistically, there is a player who sticks out. Pulisic had a goal contribution every 133 minutes, Willian every 163, Abraham 123, Giroud 125, and Mason Mount 239. Now, Pulisic will probably keep his place on the left. Willian, who's probably going outdoor, will probably be taken by Ziyech. And Abraham and Giroud, that's probably going to be taken by Werner. So positionally and statistically, I think it's Mason Mount who sticks out and is probably the most likely to lose his position to Kai Havertz. With Mason Mount being highlighted as a weak link and the position we think Kai Havertz is most likely going to take, we're going to have a little look at the statistics with Mason Mount versus Havertz.
Yeah, before we do that, let us talk about Kai Havertz's statistics for the Bundesliga for the last 2 years. In his current campaign, he scored 12 goals and he assisted 6 times, but in 7 appearances up front, he scored 7 times. In the previous campaign, 2018-2019, he scored 17 goals and had 3 assists, so he definitely has the potential to score big for his team.
Yeah, well, you can see that when we have a look at his statistics, which you can see on the screen now. Now, all the numbers here you can see is per minute. Goal contributions, Mason Mount has a goal contribution every 239 minutes. Havertz has one every 137. XG, Mount has a XG of every 416 minutes. compared to Havertz's every 262 minutes.
For those of you who don't know about XG, it's the likelihood of scoring considering the position and angle you are to the goal. Now, if you were 1 yard away with an open goal, your XG is probably 1. But if you're a goalkeeper, unless you're Paul Robinson, trying to shoot from the opposition box, that is probably 0.0. XA is exactly the same thing as XG. It's the likelihood of the player you're passing to. How likely is he going to score based on his position and his angle to goal once you've given the pass?
So Mount does an expected assist every 598 minutes compared to Havertz's 397. It's not bad because obviously Mason Mount is young, not as young as Havertz, but Havertz is clearly, at least statistically, the much better player.
I feel like the Premier League is way harder league than Bundesliga. But also, what else is quite interesting, we look at the XG versus actual, right? And Mount is exactly where his XG should be, 1.4% higher than what you expect. But Havertz is 21.8% higher than expected, which is fascinating to see, because maybe it's hard to explain exactly what, but if you can bring that to Chelsea, they'll be well happy with that.
It's probably a few worldies. I think that's what that probably is.
Yeah.
So let's have a quick look at their shot statistics. As you can see, it's pretty similar. The one thing that does separate them is the actual shots to goals. What that basically means that for all the shots they are having, Havertz is double as likely to score.
But another statistics that I find quite fascinating is the key passes. Now, key passes, Mason Mount has one key pass every 55 minutes. It's not so great, but Kai Havertz is for every 41.7 minutes. Now, I think that is the extra class that Kai Havertz will bring.
Now, while the statistics are really impressive for Havertz, I want to quickly add something in here, because there's something that the statistics don't necessarily show, and that's intelligence. And there's a lot of intelligence with Havertz. One, do you know he's played 6 different positions for Bayer Leverkusen this season? He's played central midfield, he's played right midfield, he's played right wing, he's played central attacking midfield, he's played up front, and he's played on the right wing. Now, and he's played as a right forward.
Quite a lot of education there. Playing a lot of those positions.
I think the reason why he's been popped up in so many positions is because he's been given the freedom to do what he wants, because he has that intelligence. When he plays up front, he plays as a false 9, but he really does roam. He goes around wherever he wants, and it's his movement and his spatial awareness. He's so good at finding space between the lines and putting himself in position where you can just completely remove a midfield block because of the position he's put himself into. He's very good at looking at the opposition team and picking up where to overload, moving into positions where the team will be suspect to the overload.
Yeah, and what I also like from him is that his ability to drop deep and essentially hold up the ball for Bayer Leverkusen and knock it off to his other midfielders and join in to the penalty box late and score a lot of his goals. And that will be super useful because if they do decide to let Giroud go, then that is what Giroud was really good at as well. Now to the fun sections. We are going to grade this transfer if it were to happen. Now, Alex, give us your grade from A to F.
When you take into consideration they're paying 80 million euros, I'm still going to give him an A. I think you're just getting the almost complete player. And anything he doesn't know yet, he's going to learn because he's 21 years old. If he gets any better at Chelsea, it's going to be frightening. And add on top of that, he's just what Chelsea need.
I sort of begrudgingly give this an A as well, because we all know that if the pandemic didn't happen, it would have been north of 100 million euros. So if Chelsea had the money already, they're getting him for a bit of a cut price deal. I'm always of the opinion that within reason, you get as many good players as you can and you figure it out afterwards. Now, this is on the verge of not making much sense for Chelsea, considering how many players they're buying. And it'll be very interesting to see tactically how Frank Lampard figures it all out. And also on that point, Frank Lampard, do I think he's the right coach to take take these group of players forward? And I'd say just about, because the collection of players that they bought, they're very young. They won't have any egos or any of that. And Frank Lampard is a legend at Chelsea, so he's not going to take shit from anyone.
I actually think that's quite an interesting point. I actually think that young players are more likely to sign for Chelsea now than they were a few years ago, because they have a manager who's actually investing into the young players and he's trying to build a team. That didn't really happen much before at Chelsea. So if I was a young player, I'd be more interested in going to kind of Frank Lampard's Chelsea than, say, Ancelotti's or AVB's.
If they win something in the next 2 years, Frank Lampard will stay on and continue with this team. But at the same time, if they don't win anyone, they can still bring in a manager who's more established and get them over the line with these group of players.
And now it's my favourite 2 words to say. It's the bullshit meter. Just as a quick reminder, we rate it from 1 to 10. 1 as if it's just come hot off the press from the Sun, or 10 as if it's official tweet from the club itself. Gary, what are you giving this?
For me, I give this a 7 out of 10. I know the Chelsea fans will be wanting a 10 out of 10, but anything in football can happen. So if the deal isn't done, it's not done. But it's got all the good signs. You got Fabrizio Romano tweeting about it, and you got David Ornstein, who's very reputable. You got Man City, who are focused on Nathan Ake and Ferran Torres. Real Madrid have run out of money with all the big players they've got on their books. And Man United are obsessed with Jadon Sancho. So it looks
Newcastle
like
aren't being taken over anymore. So
exactly,
Steve Bruce and Mike actually won't be buying him anytime soon.
Exactly. So the competition looks super low. So it looks like it's happening, and personal terms haven't been agreed. So I think it's quite far down the line. What about you?
I was a 7, but as I was having a look into Bayer Leverkusen's statements recently, I'm going to bump that up to an 8, because what we've got to do is read between the lines. And everything that's coming out of them is basically saying to me, hurry up and pay the money. Like, I think they're ready. Yeah. I think if a certain number is reached, I think they're ready to sell him. He only has 2 years left on his contract, so they're going to be aware of that. Chelsea are going to be aware of that. I think everything's pointing in the right direction, and yeah, I'm going to give it an 8.
Yeah, so you're assuming that they're just squeezing for 1 or 2 extra million and maybe a bit more up front. Anyway, that is everything. That is all. Thanks for watching, and let us know what you think about this transfer. Do you think this transfer is good for Chelsea? I assume you do, like we all are thinking as well. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.